Thank you for joining us on our Gold Derby 2010 to 2019 Film Decade Awards announcement today. We're announcing the winners in 22 different categories, and you've been voting on them ever since the Oscars weekend, so a little over a month. You determined nominations, and then you determined the winners. All nominees were either Gold Derby nominees over the last 10 years or Oscar nominees over the last 10 years, so that was our only qualification. Otherwise, some of these categories on the nomination phase had over 100 contenders available. So thank you for voting on this. We only get to do this, obviously, every 10 years. So we've only done it one other time ever. And I believe Lord of the Rings, Return of the King was the Best Picture winner of that year. So almost 1,700 of you voted today. I'm going to give you a little teaser you can think about as we move along during this ceremony. Out of the 21 categories that have films attached, Performer of the Year does not have any films attached. 16 different movies won. 16 different movies out of those 21 categories. So that's amazing. And thank you all for being considerate and thinking about what you wanted to vote for. All of these nominees and winners will also be featured on the IMDb pages of these films and these performers. So I'm going to get started with the first category, which is Best Documentary Feature. And the nominees are The Act of Killing, American Factory, Amy, Apollo 11, Faces Places, Free Solo, OJ Made in America, Three Identical Strangers, 13th, and Won't You Be My Neighbor. 10 nominees in each category. And the winner of the Gold Derby Decade Award wasn't even nominated at the Oscars. It's Won't You Be My Neighbor.
Yeah, and this was actually one of our closest races. Free Solo was our runner-up, and Amy was our third-place finisher, and OJ Made in America was like right there with all those three films. I think this might be the only category going over the list. I actually thought most of our winners were like, because we had a preferential vote, voters could rank their top three favorites in every category, and most of the films and the performances that got the most number one votes ended up winning their categories. But in this case, Amy actually had the most number one votes, but Won't You Be My Neighbor had slightly more points based on the consensus.
Mr. Rogers is hot right now.
Tom Hanks did not get into supporting actor, though.
It's okay. Well, next is Best Foreign Language Film. The nominees are Amour, Cold War, A Fantastic Woman, The Handmaiden, Pain and Glory, Parasite, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, Roma, A Separation, and Shoplifters. And the winner is, you will never be able to guess, Parasite.
Yeah, that was kind of a blowout.
Yeah.
Second place, not surprisingly, was Roma, which was our Best Picture winner last year. And third place was maybe a little surprising. It was like always those two dominant at 1 and 2, but third place was Portrait of a Lady on Fire, actually.
It's because it's out right now, and Adele walked out the Césars.
Yeah, I think there's some recency bias there. Like, I think if Amour had been a little bit more recent, it would have done better. It did finish in the top 5. A Separation was
that was 8 years ago now, which is insane.
So it's not the one people remembered the most.
Next is Best Animated Feature. The nominees are Anomalisa, Coco, Frozen, Inside Out, Isle of Dogs, Kubo and the Two Strings, The Lego Movie, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Toy Story 3, and Zootopia. And the winner is another Oscar winner, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
And this was another razor-thin one. This was always a very close three-way race between Spider-Man and runner-up Inside Out, and third place Toy Story 3. They all scored, when you considered first, second, and third place rankings, they all scored within 100 points of each other. So it was always those three, and the others were fairly distant after that. But everybody had a lot of support. Coco in third, or Coco in fourth, Frozen in fifth.
I'm glad it beat out all the Pixar movies.
Yeah,
Pixar should have made Best Picture last year.
Yeah, Pixar finished 2, 3, and 4. All the Pixar movies were right behind Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Moving on to Best Visual Effects, the nominees are Avengers Endgame, Avengers Infinity War, Blade Runner 2049, Ex Machina, Gravity, Inception, Interstellar, Life of Pi, Mad Max Fury Road, and War for the Planet of the Apes. And the winner was Gravity.
This was a very close race. It beat Inception, which is our runner-up, by only about by 11 points, which is basically 4 people ranking you first in a category. And Blade Runner was our third place finisher. Avengers Endgame finished 4th. There might have been a little bit of vote splitting between that and Infinity War. And then Mad Max actually finished 5th.
So unlike the Oscars, we only have one sound category, and the nominees are Arrival, Baby Driver, Dunkirk, Gravity, La La Land, Mad Max Fury Road, 1917, A Quiet Place, A Star is Born, and Whiplash. And the winner is A Quiet Place.
Yeah, ironically, the quietest movie won the Best Sound Award. Second place was Mad Max Fury Road. Third place was Whiplash. So you get your movie that's all about sound, your big, loud action movie, and your music movie. So basically all of the best sound movie tropes we have in our top 3.
So A Quiet Place 2 will win the next decade award for Best Sound.
Well, no, because then it'll run into like the recency bias thing where it'll be too long ago.
Yeah, will people remember it 10 years from now?
It'll be the only one without sound, so yes.
Let's move on to the 2 music categories. First up is Best Original Song. The nominees are Another Day of Sun, La La Land, Audition, La La Land, City of Stars, La La Land, Let It Go, Frozen, The Mystery of Love, Call Me By Your Name, Remember Me, Coco, Shallow, A Star is Born, Skyfall from Skyfall, This Is Me, The Greatest Showman, and Visions of Gideon, Call Me By Your Name. And the Gold Derby Decade Award winner is Shallow, A Star is Born.
Yeah, that's not too surprising to me, but what surprised me more is that La La Land didn't even make top 3. Given that was our biggest, Gold Derby Award winner of all time. Skyfall was in second place, and The Mystery of Love from Call Me By Your Name actually finished 3rd. City of Stars was 5th. Another Day of Sun was 6th, and Audition was 8th from La La Land. Let It Go from Frozen actually finished 4th. I actually thought that might be in our top 3, but didn't quite make it. Yeah,
I think La La Land must have split the vote. If there had been one song, it would have been competitive.
I would.
But you would just vote for City of Stars.
Yeah, or since we could vote for literally 3 movies in every category, you could have gone 1, 2, 3 for La La Land in whichever order, and those points should have added up higher.
So moving on to Best Score, the nominees are Arrival, If Beale Street Could Talk, Inception, Interstellar, Joker, La La Land, 1917, Phantom Thread, The Shape of Water, and The Social Network. And Justice for La La Land, it wins the score category.
Yeah, maybe that's why it didn't win Best Song, because people voting for it knew they could always go for it here and give Justin Hurwitz his due. Joker finished 2nd in our voting, and Inception finished 3rd. Then you had Social Network in 4th, Interstellar in 5th. Interstellar was my personal choice. I'm glad it was at least top 5. It was a pretty close vote after La La Land. La La Land was actually kind of a blowout, but then the rest of the field was pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now it's time to find out which film had the best production design of the decade. The nominees there are Black Panther, Blade Runner 2049, The Grand Budapest Hotel, Inception, La La Land, Mad Max Fury Road, 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Parasite, and The Shape of Water. And the winner is The Grand Budapest Hotel.
Yeah, this had a pretty overwhelming support, at least in terms of number 1 votes. Then you had Mad Max Fury Road is our runner-up, and Parasite finished 3rd.
It's got Hotel in the title, of course it's got to win.
Yeah. And then, ironically, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood finished 4th, even though at our yearly Gold Derby Awards and at the Oscars, I believe Once Upon a Time in Hollywood beat Parasite for production design. So.
Ooh. All right, well, let's find out which film has the best makeup and hairstyling of the decade. The nominees there are Black Panther, Bombshell, Darkest Hour, The Favorite, The Grand Budapest Hotel, Guardians of the Galaxy, Mad Max Fury Road, The Shape of Water, Suspiria, yay, and Vice. And the winner there is Mad Max Fury Road.
And it was followed by the two, prosthetic jowly movies. Bombshell was our runner-up, and Darkest Hour was in third place. Actually, fourth place was the other prosthetic jowly movie, which was Vice. Old Wrinkles didn't do quite as well because Grand Budapest Hotel was in fifth place, and For Suspiria was in 10th.
It was intense. I was going to ask Daniel because you and I are like the Suspiria fans on this site.
Yeah,
I guess our two votes were the only two that it got. Maybe. Yeah, my two. Actually, it did get 91 winner votes. Every film in every single category had hundreds of points and at least dozens of votes. So there was nothing without passionate support at these awards. That's good to know. There were at least 89 other smart people.
Now, next up is the award for Best Film Editing. The nominees are Baby Driver, Boyhood, Dunkirk, Inception, La La Land, Mad Max Fury Road, 1917, Parasite, The Social Network, and Whiplash. And the Decade Award goes to Parasite. And this was another razor-thin margin. It beat Mad Max Fury Road by just 60 or some odd points. Mad Max Fury Road actually had more number one votes, not very many more number one votes, but Parasite was the consensus choice. And Whiplash placed third with Inception and The Social Network fourth and fifth.
Interesting how this is another award that, was not awarded at the Oscars, but our voters gave it to it,
It's because of the peach sequence.
Wait, are you talking about Call Me By Your Name? I'm confused here.
Oh, only you would be still thinking about Call Me By Your Name. Now peach sequence is just Parasite.
We should have had a special category, best fruit in a motion picture in the last decade. Honestly, just the honorary award to Peaches for the last 10 years is just.
That's right. They play such an integral role in all of these great films that we've
which brings us to Best Costume Design. No Peaches need apply. The nominees for costumes are Black Panther, Dolomite Is My Name, The Favorite, The Grand Budapest Hotel, The Great Gatsby, La La Land, Little Women, Mad Max Fury Road, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Phantom Thread. And the Decade Award goes to Black Panther. Ruthie Carter winning that one. Followed in second place by The Grand Budapest Hotel, and in third place, the film about fashion, Phantom Thread, so that wasn't too surprising. Mad Max Fury Road was fourth, and The Favorite was fifth.
Justice for Ruthie Carter getting in for Dolomite Is My Name. And
she was nominated for both, but it was very clear that Black Panther was our voters' choice because actually Dolomite finished 10th. But again, had its own a lot of support, but I think people really rallied behind Black Panther for her.
Well, up next is the last of the crafts categories, cinematography, otherwise known as the Lebesky category. He's in here several times. Birdman, Blade Runner 2049, Gravity, La La Land, The Lighthouse, Mad Max Fury Road, 1917, The Revenant, Roma, and The Tree of Life. And our Gold Derby Decade Award on cinematography goes to Roger Deakins' 1917.
Yeah, poor Emmanuel Lubezki. This was the category of Lubezki. He was nominated 4 times, and the top 2 were both Roger Deakins, 1917 and Blade Runner. And then third place was Alfonso Cuarón for Roma. Emmanuel Lubezki finished 5th, 7th, 8th, and 9th for Gravity, Tree of Life, Revenant, and Birdman in that order.
Next, we have a non-Oscar category, but it's our SAG equivalent, Ensemble of the Decade. Although they don't have a Decade Award, but Ensemble. Anyway, the nominees are American Hustle, Birdman, The Favorite, The Grand Budapest Hotel, Knives Out, Little Women, Moonlight, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Parasite, and 12 Years a Slave. And the winner is, just like at SAG, Parasite.
Yeah, this was a very recency biasy kind of category, given that like 4 of the 10 nominees were from last year. But yeah, Parasite was
I'm glad Knives Out got in because it got snubbed at SAG, though.
Yeah, Parasite was a pretty big blowout here, followed by runner-up Grand Budapest Hotel, and third place was a little surprising to me. Actually, American Hustle, which is one of the earliest films to be nominated in this category this year.
SAG winner as well.
Yeah, Knives Out did finish 4th in our voting, and The Favorite rounded out our top 5.
So back to categories that track the Oscars. Best Original Screenplay. The nominees are Birdman, Django Unchained, The Favorite, Get Out, Her, Inception, Lady Bird, Manchester by the Sea, Marriage Story, and Parasite. And the winner is, a word you're hearing a lot this morning, Parasite.
Yeah, Parasite. This was another huge win. Although, honestly, I think this top 5, if you had to pick screenplays that define the decade, this top 5 is pretty brilliant. We had Get Out in 2nd place, Her in 3rd place, Inception 4th, and Lady Bird 5th. Honestly, that's a list of 5 screenplays that if you want to study the decade, I feel like those are the 5. I really love that category.
And moving on to Best Adapted Screenplay, the nominees are Arrival, Black Klansman, Call Me By Your Name, Gone Girl, Jojo Rabbit, Little Women, Moonlight, The Social Network, 12 Years a Slave, and The Wolf of Wall Street. And the Gold Derby Decade Award winner for Adapted Screenplay is The Social Network. We reached all the way back, 10 years for this one?
This is our first winner from the first year of the decade.
And we had a decent spread in terms of the years from these things. 2nd place was Call Me By Your Name, which was 2017. Then 3rd place was Moonlight, which was 2016. 4th place was Arrival, which was that 2015 or 2016? It was 2016. And then the most recent Oscar winner and the most recent film in our top 5 is Jojo Rabbit, which is in 5th place.
Well, much like the Oscars, we're 20 minutes into this and just now getting to our first acting category, and that is Best Supporting Actor of the Decade. The nominees there are Mahershala Ali for Moonlight, Christian Bale for The Fighter, Willem Dafoe for The Lighthouse, Philip Seymour Hoffman for The Master, Jared Leto for Dallas Buyers Club, Brad Pitt for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Sam Rockwell for 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, J.K. Simmons for Whiplash, Song Kang-ho for Parasite, and Christoph Waltz for Django Unchained. And the winner there was J.K. Simmons for Whiplash.
Yeah, no recency bias there either. This was a surprisingly big blowout. Like, this was not even close. I thought Mahershala Ali would make it more of a contest, although Mahershala is our runner-up. And actually, 3rd place is Philip Seymour Hoffman for The Master.
Yay!
R.I.P.
Yeah, Song Kang-ho was 4th, and the recent Oscar winner, Brad Pitt, is 5th. Interesting that we nominated Christoph Waltz for Django Unchained here, since instead of Leonardo DiCaprio, when it was Leonardo DiCaprio who won our yearly award for supporting actor that year.
You know, the decade can be a funny thing. 8 years later, and finally people come around to nominating that poor Christoph Waltz.
That poor underappreciated Christoph Waltz, who has never lost an Oscar nomination.
Yeah.
It brings us to Best Supporting Actress. The nominees are Patricia Arquette for Boyhood, Viola Davis, Fences, Anne Hathaway, Les Miserables, Allison Janney, I, Tonya, Laurie Metcalf, Lady Bird, Lupita Nyong'o, 12 Years a Slave, Octavia Spencer, The Help, Alicia Vikander for Ex Machina, Rachel Weisz for The Favorite, and Michelle Williams for Manchester by the Sea. And the winner is Lupita Nyong'o for 12 Years a Slave. This was a closer category. Viola Davis had a lot of support in second place, and Laurie Metcalf had a lot of support in third place. And honestly, a lot of support going down the list with Rachel Weisz in fourth for The Favorite. Probably helped that she did not have Emma Stone up against her here. And Anne Hathaway in fifth place for Les Miserables.
Pretty good lineup there, that top five. You know.
Yeah, and honestly, they're like hundreds and hundreds of points. Every single person in this category had a lot of support.
Next is Best Actor. The nominees are Casey Affleck, Manchester by the Sea, Timothée Chalamet, Call Me by Your Name, Bradley Cooper, A Star is Born, Daniel Day-Lewis, Lincoln, Leonardo DiCaprio, The Wolf of Wall Street, Adam Driver, Marriage Story, Jake Gyllenhaal, Nightcrawler, Michael Keaton, Birdman, Joaquin Phoenix, Joker, and Joaquin Phoenix, The Master. And the winner is recency bias, Joaquin Phoenix for Joker.
Yeah, I wonder if we held this vote in another 5-6 months, I'm not sure Joaquin Phoenix would still win.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Yeah, Timothée Chalamet was in second place here, and I think given a little bit more time, just the love for that performance would have put that over the top, over the sort of recency of the Joaquin Phoenix performance. So Timothée Chalamet was our runner-up. Leonardo DiCaprio for The Wolf of Wall Street was actually in third place. Day-Lewis for Lincoln was fourth, and Adam Driver for Marriage Story was actually fifth.
More recency bias.
Yeah, Phoenix's other nomination for The Master, that was actually in seventh, which honestly, if I had to pick one performance or the other, I personally would have gone for that one.
Same.
Same.
But you guys didn't like Joker, so you're
I
biased.
did like Joker.
I liked his performance. I just prefer his performance in The Master to his performance in Joker.
I just think when you're thinking about the decade, I'm like, really? Maybe not.
I prefer his performance in Her to his performance in Joker, too.
Yeah, same.
Well, moving on to Best Actress, our final acting category, we will have Performer of the Year at the end, which doesn't involve any particular movie, just a person's whole body of work over the decade. But anyway, Best Actress, Amy Adams, Arrival, Kate Blanchett, Blue Jasmine, Toni Collette, Hereditary, Olivia Colman, The Favorite, Brie Larson, Room, Frances McDormand, Three Billboards, Lupita Nyong'o, Us, Rosamund Pike, Gone Girl, Natalie Portman, Black Swan, and Emma Stone, La La Land. And no recency bias here because we jump back almost 10 years to Natalie Portman is the winner for Black Swan.
Wow.
Yeah, Natalie Portman was our winner by a pretty substantial margin. This was always hers. Second place was Olivia Colman for The Favorite, and third place was Kate Blanchett for Blue Jasmine. So that's a really broad spread across the decade. And then Frances McDormand in fourth, and Emma Stone in fifth. So we really covered the whole decade. So it's interesting how recency bias seemed to come into play in some places and not everywhere.
Meryl Streep was robbed.
Now we're moving to Best Director, and the nominees are Bong Joon-ho for Parasite, Damien Chazelle, La La Land, Alfonso Cuarón for Gravity, Alfonso Cuarón for Roma, David Fincher, The Social Network, Alejandro González Iñárritu for Birdman, Barry Jenkins for Moonlight, Sam Mendes in 1917, George Miller, Mad Max Fury Road, and Christopher Nolan, Inception. And the winner, Bong Joon-ho for Parasite.
And we had a spread across the decade in 2 and 3. We had La La Land. Damien Chazelle was second place from 2016. And then third place was Christopher Nolan for Inception, which was back in 2010. And then George Miller for Mad Max and David Fincher in fifth for The Social Network. Alfonso Cuarón finished sixth and seventh, which wasn't too surprising since neither of his films that he was nominated for Best Director for, we actually nominated for Best Picture of the Decade. So
I guess he'll just make do with his Oscars.
yeah, all his 7 Oscars that he's won. And he was our third place finisher for cinematography. So. And now we're runner-up for foreign film. So it's not a total loss. So brings us to our penultimate category is actually Best Picture. We will end with Performer of the Decade afterwards. So the nominees for Best Picture are Boyhood, Call Me by Your Name, Get Out, Inception, La La Land, Mad Max Fury Road, Moonlight, Parasite, The Social Network, and Whiplash. And if you've been paying attention through this, you will not be surprised that the winner is Parasite. That is 6 wins for Parasite here, which when you add it to the 6 awards it won at our yearly awards, that's 12 total awards for Parasite over like its entire Gold Derby Awards history, which makes it the most awarded film of all time from Gold Derby. So it's actually our top 5 is exactly the same here as it was for Best Director. La La Land in 2nd place, Inception 3rd, Mad Max 4th, and The Social Network 5th.
Wow, was everyone voting in tandem?
Well, the final category, as Daniel said, is Performer of the Decade. And I've heard of most of these people. The nominees are Amy Adams, Christian Bale, Bradley Cooper, Viola Davis, Leonardo DiCaprio, Adam Driver, Jennifer Lawrence, Joaquin Phoenix, Saoirse Ronan, and Emma Stone. And again, these are not attached to any film. It's just their work over the entire 10 years. And the Gold Derby Decade winner for Performer of the Decade is Amy Adams.
Yeah, interesting. She lost Best Actress like she was only in 7th for Best Actress, but she squeaked one out here. This was a pretty close race. Saoirse Ronan was a very close 2nd place. Leonardo DiCaprio was a close 3rd place. Joaquin Phoenix was actually right in it too. With he was in 4th place, and then Christian Bale rounded out our top 5. Poor Jennifer Lawrence, she, I feel like if she had been in something more recently, then people might have remembered her more.
I mean, Mother was recent. It's just no one cared.
Mother was great.
Yeah, justice for Mother.
Yeah, Mother was the most underrated movie of the last 10 years.
Yeah, if the decade ended in like 2015, she would have won this hands down.
Yeah. And so it's interesting. Amy Adams was actually the only performer nominated for Performer of the Decade, both here and at the Gold Derby TV Decade Awards. And she got that nomination even though her only TV project over the course of the decade was Sharp Objects. So I'm not that surprised that she won here for a decade where she had 4 Oscar nominations. She was in the DC Extended Universe as Lois Lane in 3 different films. Golden Globe winner for Big Eyes. So she had so much going on this last decade.
But will she finally win an Oscar this decade?
Oh, yeah.
You never know. We'll find
she's
out.
got one coming.
Well, thank you everyone for voting. And right now you can go to Gold Derby and make your predictions for the Emmy nominations, the Tony nominations, Razzies, which is actually ending this weekend. So hurry and make your Razzie picks. The ACM Awards, Project Runway, Survivor. We're going to have more events coming up very soon. So keep coming back to check Gold Derby. Thank you.